Walter watched from the lamplit threshold as Walter's wife clasped another man's hand, their fingers intimate in a way she denied him. Langton-on-Holm still counted him fortunate, prosperous, young, well-married, and secure beneath his father's roof. Yet desire held him where trust had died, turning every remembered tenderness into a chain. Walter's wife hid nothing now. Her cold gaze answered his pain with open hatred. His father's house stifled him, while the crowded roofs of Langton-on-Holm seemed to proclaim his humiliation. At her closed door, Walter raised one broad hand, anger urging him to strike. But Walter let it fall. He would neither beg for love nor purchase dignity with needless vengeance. Because remaining would turn desire into degradation, he chose the sea and carried his decision to Bartholomew Golden. At dawn, Walter carried his private resolve onto the crowded quay of Langton-on-Holm.
The Catherine shall bear you, though my heart misgives me.
Only spare her needless shame. I seek no vengeance.
Bartholomew Golden searched his son's gray eyes, clasped his shoulder, and granted the mercy he did not understand. As they parted, a wolf and maiden banner stirred above a gangplank, and 3 strangers passed beneath it. The dwarf went first, hunched and fanged. The mistress followed in jewels, the maid barefoot and guarded in white. A dark iron ring closed her ankle, and Walter's departing grief sharpened into wonder. Before the Catherine sailed, the 3 appeared again at the quay's far end, watching Walter without farewell. When their banner vanished seaward, Walter's escape became a search for the strange pageant's source. Though ordinary grief faded during the months after departure, the 3 strange figures kept Walter's wonder wakeful. Then, a messenger brought word that Bartholomew Golden had died in the feud born from Walter's expulsion. Duty, long muffled by distance, rose in Walter like an old command of blood. Return, reckon, avenge. Yet, while speaking, the messenger saw the mistress, the maid, and the dwarf pass plainly before them. Another man's frightened gaze made Walter's private visions impossible to dismiss merely as sorrow. He boarded the Bartholomew for Langton-on-Holm, carrying filial duty toward the home he had spared. But black weather broke over the sea, wrenching the stout cutter from her homeward course. As storm waves drove him toward unknown lands, Walter hid the secret joy that answered their violence. At dawn, the Bartholomew reached the cliff wall, where a river mouth offered shelter, and the old man seemed to expect Walter. The old man welcomed him, but watched the heights with wary eyes.
Beyond these cliffs dwell the folk of the bears. They offer harmless strangers in sacrifice, fearing anger from above.
His warning darkened into confession. In youth, he found a forbidden road and slew its former keeper, taking his place.
I gained his dwelling, but lost my soul upon that path.
Then Walter saw another cleft, narrow as a sword cut, splitting the gray stone.
Is that the shard?
The old man's face tightened, and his gaze fled Walter's.
There is no passage there, only shadow.
The denial was too swift. The shard stood revealed as a threshold someone feared enough to hide. Suspicion hardened into resolve. Walter left the returning shipmates and entered the shard alone. The cleft swallowed daylight, then released him upon waterless heights of splintered stone. All day he climbed beneath a pitiless sky until hunger blurred the path. At the mountain rim, green abundance opened below. Giant trees, flowered lawns, water, and sunlit distances. Walter laughed for joy, though the descent carried him beyond every road he knew. Near the first shade, the dwarf sprang from a thicket, fanged and armed, yet offered bread. Walter ate, watching those long hands tremble between service and violence.
My lady shall have a fair new guest, but the thing must starve, and I would see it suffer.
Terror overtook his malice. The dwarf fled, and Walter followed the path toward the unnamed captive. At the spring, the dwarf's hatred found its object in the maid, whom Walter had followed beyond the world. Her gray eyes met his, hope overcoming fear.
I love you, and I choose you.
I choose you too, my friend and beloved. Claim me not.
The iron ankle ring marked her as an enslaved thrall.
The mistress watches, the dwarf hunts, and the king's son covets.
I will deliver you from them all.
She warned that the mistress had lured him to replace her princely lover.
Touch me not. Maidenhood alone preserves my protecting magic.
Walter accepted distance as trust's first proof.
Whatever seeming divides us, I forgive you beforehand.
And I forgive you. Let truth wait upon freedom.
Bound by that oath, Walter went willingly toward the Golden House, where appearances would become snares. Leaving the maid's candid fear behind, Walter entered the Golden House, where every gesture seemed arranged for judgment. The mistress permitted him to remain, but her welcome held the chill of mockery. For 4 measured days, the mistress treated him as a bright trifle forgotten, granting neither dismissal nor welcome. Before Walter's guarded eyes, she drew the king's son into deliberate intimacy. His cold gaze endured her possession without affection. Across lawn and pillared hall, the dwarf repeatedly appeared, fanged mouth still, watching whenever Walter looked toward the greenery. Walter met humiliation with courtesy, yet isolation sharpened each laugh into mockery and each silence into warning. By the 4th evening, prolonged neglect had made him desperate enough to linger near closed doors and listen where a less lonely guest would have withdrawn. Isolation taught Walter what neglect concealed. The mistress and the king's son were weighing jealousy against murder. The king's son wanted Walter slain. The mistress urged that the maid be questioned first, without mercy. At the hunt, Walter served the mistress, carrying her weapons beneath the green shade. The maid was brought forth in her white shift, the iron ankle ring declaring bondage. Walter's gaze met hers only once, yet devotion nearly broke through his guarded face. From a thicket, the dwarf watched him, fanged mouth parted and short bow ready.
Never have I seen beauty command the woodland so completely.
He bowed toward the mistress with extravagant wonder, making admiration a shield for the maid. The dwarf lowered his bow, while the mistress smiled. Walter had saved their secret and invited a more intimate trial. Flattery preserved Walter, but the hunt tested how tightly usefulness might bind him. When game escaped, the mistress swung from laughter into fury, darkening the sunlit glades. Under her wrathful gaze, Walter confessed the threefold pageant haunting him since Langton on home.
Then I summoned you, and you have come to me.
At once she softened, and Walter feared her sweetness more than her anger. A lion burst from cover. Walter leapt before the mistress and buried his sword in its breast. Beside the fallen beast, she promised whatever reward lay within her power. The maid's iron ankle ring flashed in Walter's mind, but fear and desire divided his purpose.
Grant me only one kiss upon the cheek.
The mistress kissed him, and his hesitation left the maid enslaved, while temptation gained a sharper hold. Walter's wasted favor made the king's son's claim upon the maid almost unbearable. Concealed nearby, Walter watched the cold prince force from her a promise of a secret tryst. His hand closed on his sword, and jealous wrath drove him one step forward. The maid caught his gaze and touched the iron ankle ring, recalling their compact before his anger betrayed them.
Trust what seems false, or we are lost.
Later, alone, she revealed a craft of altered appearances by which enemy might be turned against enemy. Whatever face she wore, the iron ankle ring would reveal her to Walter and command his silence. Walter mastered possession, renewed his oath, and accepted the deception she required. Thus disciplined by trust, yet newly vulnerable, he stood ready for the dangerous role now awaiting him. To keep the maid's design alive, Walter went alone to answer the mistress's summons. She awaited him beneath moonlit boughs, jeweled and radiant, anger sharpening her beautiful, imperious eyes.
You defied me, and thereby proved yourself worthy of me.
Walter held her gaze, but refusal now threatened not only himself, and the hidden cost of courage closed around him. Her wrath softened into triumph. She kissed him as though conquest were tenderness. Then the mistress led him through flowers into the bower of pleasance, where lamplight warmed the small thatched house. There Walter became the lover she had deliberately summoned, preserving his place within the maid's perilous deception. By dawn he knew their escape, if won, would carry no spotless hero, but would bind them both within one shared stain. Morning erased the bower, yet Walter carried its shame into the bright halls of the Golden House. Before watching eyes, the maid invited him to her chamber at midnight, her gaze warning against the promise. Where the lion had fallen, neither blood nor bone remained. Beast and bower were layers of one enchantment. Passing close, the maid whispered that her public summons was false. He must wait, armed, among the hazels. The king's son met him coldly, and boasted that the maid moved only by his will. Then the mistress clothed Walter in royal splendor, feasted him beneath golden lamps, and commanded his presence in her own chamber at midnight. Thus, 2 invitations and 1 secret refuge drew every jealous claim within the Golden House toward the same fatal hour. In jeweled splendor, Walter saw that borrowed honor was only another chain. Across the hall, the maid bared the iron ankle ring, their appointed signal. Walter slipped away, shed the royal clothing, donned plain traveling gear, and armed himself. Under cold stars he hid among hazels, watching the Golden House and counting breaths. A terrible wail tore the night, and the maid ran barefoot from the darkness.
Take my hand, and southward.
Hand in hand they fled south until marble, gold, and cries vanished behind trees. At dawn they halted beneath a paling sky before a hard blue wall of mountains.
The king's son is dead. Beyond these mountains wait the folk of the bears.
Before Walter could ask what price had opened their road, danger stirred behind them. The unanswered death behind them became a weapon in the dwarf's mouth. From the slope, his shaft struck the maid, and she sank, white shift darkening at the wound. Walter's answering arrow struck him, yet the dwarf only snarled and knocked another.
She slew the mistress, your lover. Yield her, and go free. I will wring the truth from her with torment.
Walter dropped his bow and climbed into the arrows, sword drawn, gray eyes fixed on his enemy. One shaft tore his clothing, another glanced away, but he never broke stride. At sword's reach, he struck once. Steel sheared through neck and shoulder, and the dwarf fell twisted on the stones. Walter turned toward the maid. His violent refusal had saved her, but now he stood before his own need for the truth. With the dwarf dead, no enemy remained between Walter and the question in the maid's frightened eyes. He demanded truth, but she recoiled as though his judgment were another chain. Walter remembered the pardon sworn before danger and chose his promise before knowing her freedom's cost.
Whatever you have done, I forgive you.
He embraced her, heedless of blood and fear, until her rigid body yielded to grief. Wonder and shame crossed the maid's face. Mercy had reached her before confession. Yet she warned that the dwarf's death had not made their escape safe. At her grave direction, Walter severed the head. Together, they buried it apart from the body, beneath earth and heavy stones. When the ground lay smooth, they went toward the river together, forgiven deeds behind them and painful truth ahead. By the river, Walter's mercy let the maid recount her beginning. They shared food while dusk gathered over the water, and her broken memories found order.
I was a little child in a foul city.
An old teacher sheltered her, teaching hidden wisdom before death left her undefended. She awoke in bondage, the iron ankle ring newly riveted around her flesh. The mistress tormented her with jealous tests. The dwarf pursued her cruelly. The king's son waited to possess her. Every path outward was watched, and every seeming refuge belonged to one of them.
My visions drew you hither, into the net.
Yet her protective wisdom endured only while she remained a maiden, guarded by the maiden's girdle. Then Walter understood why simple flight had failed, and prepared to hear the deadly design that freed them. With the cost and limits of her protection laid bare, the maid revealed the design that had purchased freedom with blood. To mislead the dwarf's pursuit, she spread false news of a lion and drew the mistress toward a false tryst. First, she drugged the king's son into helpless sleep. Then her hidden art laid Walter's appearance over the sleeping prince. Jealousy saw only Walter where her captive lay. The mistress struck the king's son dead before the seeming lover could wake. When the borrowed likeness fell away, she understood, wailed over him, and turned the same violence upon herself.
I desired escape and chose the road despite its darkness.
Under their former oath, Walter forgave her without naming either innocent, and joined his fate to hers as the Bear Country opened ahead. Shared guilt hardened into resolve. Through the Bear Country, the maid would claim the dead god's empty place. On the dry downs, her lore preserved summer blossoms beneath the pitiless sun. She wove them over her white shift, clothing the iron-ringed thrall in living flowers and crowning her brown hair. Walter walked beside the flower-clad divinity as tawny-haired warriors watched them descend into a green valley of huts and herds. The folk of the bears lifted stone and bone weapons, yet sacred fear compelled them to offer bread and milk. They ate within a ring of guards. Walter feared Dawn's knife, but the maid answered his alarm with a steady, confident gaze. Thus armed hospitality carried their desperate claim from private invention toward judgment before the whole people. At dawn, private courage entered the stone doom ring beneath the open sky before the assembled folk of the bears. Their elders demanded proof without pity, threatening fire, whipping, and drowning if the maid's wonder failed. Bound among huge, tawny-haired warriors, Walter watched with fixed gray eyes as fading flowers hung from her white shift and brown hair.
I am the new body of your god. Come amongst you for your welfare.
She raised her hands, the iron ankle ring stark below, and commanded every gaze. A hush fell. Then each drooping petal brightened, bare stems budded, and blossoms climbed her body. Weapons lowered, stern faces softened, and the folk of the bears bowed, accepting the wonder. Sacred authority was hers, and she must spend it on mercy for strangers before saving Walter and herself. The miracle gave the maid the sacred authority once raised to destroy her. The folk of the bears escorted her and Walter across tawny downs toward the mountain pass, bowing whenever she turned. Before the black peaks, she faced them, gray eyes steady above her simple white shift and iron ankle ring.
Let no harmless stranger be offered again for sacrifice.
The huge warriors lowered their stone and bone weapons, accepting mercy as the last command of their living goddess. She sent them home before the promised storm, then climbed onward while worshippers crowded around Walter, begging blessings and farewell. Rain struck suddenly, hail whitened the rocks, thunder swallowed his calls, and darkness erased the path between them. When Walter broke free and reached the pass alone, no answering shape remained in the tempest. With no sign to follow, Walter descended from the storm-dark pass into the empty valley. There, beneath clearing clouds, he cried his longing aloud until the hills gave it back.
Beloved, I have lost all words if I have lost you.
A white figure rose from concealment among the rocks, brown hair streaming, gray eyes fixed upon him.
I stayed near enough to hear you.
Walter ran to her, and their embrace ended the terror of the storm. He asked her then to marry him, here in the valley, with no kingdom promised beyond it.
Wait until we reach safety. My maidenhood guards us.
Desire yielded to trust. Walter gave his word, and she accepted it with quiet joy. Bound only by promise, they turned together toward the distant world of walls and laws. Beyond rain-dark slopes, Starkwall rose with towers and bright banners, looking at last like safety made stone. On the plain, the lords of Starkwall approached beneath ancient emblems and bowed wordlessly before the weary pair. They set food before Walter and the maid, yet answered gratitude only with solemn, unreadable faces. 2 litters waited. The lovers were carried apart through crowded gates, straining for one last glimpse. Within the fortified palace, armored attendants shut Walter alone behind heavy doors. They stripped away his travel-worn clothing, bathed him, combed his yellow hair, and offered neither welcome nor explanation. By ancestral custom, they led him naked before assembled nobles, who inspected his warrior's frame in cold light. With every borrowed rank and garment gone, Walter faced their silent purpose, armed only with instinct. Stripped of every borrowed sign of rank, Walter stood before Starkwall with only his courage left to answer. The lords of Starkwall offered jeweled peace robes, but he looked instead to the scarred plates of the ancestral battle gear. He armed himself, set the old crowned helm upon his yellow hair, and lifted the broad, ancient sword. Weapons struck the floor as the lords of Starkwall acclaimed Walter king of battle beneath the vaulted thunder. On the ivory throne, Walter learned their law. When the old line failed, a worthy stranger choosing battle before luxury became king of battle. Yet his first use of power sought neither treasure nor vengeance. He demanded that the maid be brought before him. His kingship would begin by allowing the maid to appear in whatever guise she chose. Walter's first command answered the iron ring with honor, not another claim of mastery, before Starkwall. The maid entered in a servant's white coat, roses at her breast, and knelt beneath bright banners. Walter descended from the ivory throne, took her hand, and raised her to stand beside him.
This is the maid, my beloved, my spouse and your queen.
The city acclaimed them together. Afterward, the great church crowned and anointed them, then hallowed their marriage. At last, alone and unafraid, the maid untied the maiden's girdle and laid its pale knot aside. She came to Walter by her own will. Maidenhood and wizardry ended, but neither love nor memory was diminished. Secure at last, they woke to a freedom whose worth would be measured by what they gave others. Their chosen union turned immediately outward, as Walter carried the memory of bondage into Starkwall's first council. Before the solemn lords of Starkwall, he ordered the prisons opened, judging that strength began by ending needless captivity. Stores were measured for the needy, and bread passed through streets more accustomed to ancient martial ceremony. Thus his first command named justice, not conquest, as the surest guard upon the walls. Then the maid laid aside every remnant of magic and returned to the Bear Country, where those she had deceived gathered in wary silence. She brought freed husbandmen, seed, and tools, offering patient tillage where once she had answered sacred fear with wonder. When harvest followed labor, the newcomers became kin, and no unpaid moral debt remained thereafter to shadow Walter and the maid's shared life. Years gathered after the last burden lifted, ripening Walter's reign into peace beneath Starkwall's ancient towers. He judged mercifully, prized courage above pride, and taught the strong that guardianship outweighed conquest. Beside him, the maid became the land's beloved safeguard, and plenty followed her patient, practical care. Their sons and daughters grew beneath ancient emblems, heirs already known, rather than strangers summoned through the mountain pass.
At last, when Walter's strength ebbed peacefully, his household gathered around the quiet bed. The maid stood nearest, gray eyes steady with grief, as their children watched the father who made refuge home. Walter's fading gaze passed from old emblems to living faces. No vacant throne awaited another wanderer. His hand came to rest inside the maid's, and peace closed over him. Love made lineage at last.